gamers? Today on Dice and Dragons, we are going to be covering a game I've been itching to get covered, Street Masters by Blacklist Games, designed by the twin brothers Brady and Adam Sadler. We've played one of their games before. Well, I played some of their games. I think this is maybe Julie's first experience with these two designers, but we are eagerly awaiting their Heroes of Terranoth, which should be out shortly. Now, before I hand it over to Julie to tell you more about the game itself, I just want to let you know what we're going to be talking about with regards to Street Masters. It is a game where you are basically pretending you are a video game fighter. It does a great job of, recreating the classic side-scrolling and fighting games where you're going to be kicking the butt out of minions and bosses. And I'll let Julie tell you the specifics of how we're going to do that.
So it's a cooperative game, as we like to review and play. It's 1 to 4 players, 45 minutes to about 2 hours for ages 14 and above.
Yeah. I think you might want to spend even a little bit more time on your first game.
Yeah, the first one's probably going to take a while. It took me a while.
Yeah, just to give you guys a head up, this is a heavier game. We'll talk more about it when we get to our review. But heavy game, set some time aside.
For the first one.
Yeah, at least for the first one. With that being said, let's grab our drinks. Grab our best friend. Cheers, and where are we taking this?
To the table. It's such a big game, I can hide behind it.
You can definitely hide behind it. So, what do you think you want to be? There's lots of cool fighters in this.
Is there a girl that kicks butt?
Well, there's.
I know there's a girl that kicks butt. We've played. I'm going to play her.
Okay. Now we're going to take a look at the components for Street Masters. Now, as you can see, we've got a lot of components here. I just want to highlight that these are not all of the components that come in the base game, just a nice selection of most of them so that you can see what you will be getting. Now, one thing I'm going to highlight right off the bat is I did get the Kickstarter. At the time we were publishing this video, the Kickstarter is currently ongoing for the new expansion Aftershock. If there are any components that you find in here that are only available in the Kickstarter version, I apologize. In the rulebook, which will be a nice segue, we'll take a quick look at it right now actually. It does give you a breakdown of the components, but you don't see which ones are specifically stretch goals or in the base game only. That's going to be in retail. As of yet, the game has not gone to retail, but we've got a nice, well put together rule book. If you're looking for some rules as well, there are some on the back of the book. It does not have a reference card. It's got the rules for your allies and rivals, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. All right, we've done the intro. We've taken a look at the rule book quickly. So let's dive into the components. Now, the first thing I'm going to start with are the stages. The base game includes 4 stages. As you can see, there are 4 of them. I'm not going to show you all of them. It could get a little messy. And I want to keep everything nice and neat and not knock everything over. So there are 4 different stages, as you can see. And the stages are double-sided, such as supply and demand and cashed out. Here we've got compromise. And just let me flip this one over, actually. We get original copy. I'm still going to move them away because I want a specific one at the top. Sudden death, followed by steel memories. Excellent. Now, and then you'll see Gone Ballistic right here. And what I wanted to show you was with Gone Ballistic, there is a stage deck. With steel memories, there is a stage deck. Now, these are the 3 that I've taken out. There are a total of 8 stage decks. Now, each stage deck has their own setup, as you can see right there. So you're going to follow the setup rules, meaning that the stages are set up differently every time. And for those of you that aren't going to necessarily watch like the how to play, just give a quick breakdown. You can see on the stage where the boss goes, where you place crates, objective tokens, your fighter spawn location. This is a symbol that is in particular to that stage, and then where the minions will spawn. Now we've taken a look at the stages. Let's take a look at the fighters. Well, the base game starts with 6 different fighters. I've got them all here. Megan, Kyoryu, Gabriel, Yinghua, Brandon, and Natalia. Now, each fighter has their card right here, and we'll pick it up so you can get a closer view. You see their starting health, what it will take to power them up, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, the type of damage they deal, and then the action part of their card that you can activate depending on what you'd like to do during your fighter turn. And you can see here the charged up version of the card, and you'll notice that the action is now different. Now, each fighter has their own deck of cards. We'll take a look at a few of them, actually. Let's take one from Megan and one from Kyoryu. So both of these are tactic cards, and I'm just going to place them down right here. Now, tactic cards are abilities that are going to stay in your play area. You notice they have the exhaust feature. You can use them not multiple times, but more than once, unlike other cards, such as, and let's make sure we find one, an attack like this one, Gale Force. And let's see if we go in here for Kyoryu to give you another good example. All right, this is a punching attack as well. I want something a little different. Not perfect. We'll just put them like this. Give you guys a better view as I place these back on the top of their decks. You also have attacks, and there are also cards called abilities that may just deal a set amount of damage. But what you'll see right here is that these attack cards deal different types of attack damage than the fighter's regular damage, and you can play these on the card phase of the turn. So tactics, cards that you can play that'll be essentially permanent buffs to your character. Attacks, and let's see if I can just pull one out quickly just to show you the difference. Abilities, what you can see for Megan is a little different there. It just deals 3 kick damage, so no die rolling. That's one of the different things about abilities. Now we've taken a look at the fighter cards themselves. I'm just going to put these back, and then we'll take a quick look at their miniatures, as well as some of the defense tokens and the dice that your fighters are going to be rolling. Oh, put Megan on top of Kyoryu. Meant to do that, did not mean to do that. All right. So as I said, let's dive into the miniatures and these cards that I have right in front of me. You know, each fighter has their own miniature, as you can see. There are these defense tokens, and I didn't take out all of them. There are way more than what I've taken out here in the box, but as you can see, they're for the different damage types: kick, punch, and grapple. You can see we got a kick, punch, and a grapple fighter here. That's why I set it up like this. Now, these tokens can be used to block what's known as general damage and damage of a specific type, so the grapple, the punch, or the kick type. When they're blocked, and they're blocked by your character, you flip them over to their charge side, meaning Megan would need 4 of these to power up, Kyoryu would need 6, Gabriel would need 8. Here we've got the fighter turn cards, which gives you a nice, easy, simple breakdown of what's going to happen on your fighter's turn. Then if you flip it over, which is what you see right here, you get the instructions for the enemy turn and the stage turn. Yes, the stages have a turn. That's why they have their own decks and setup rules. Now I'll put this back. Here quickly we've got the different damage tokens, and I didn't realize I stacked a 10 on top of a 25. My apologies. But we've got the 4 different damage tokens: 1, 5, 10, and 25. Very straightforward. When your guy takes damage, place it on the card. Same thing for the evil villains that you see over there. Now here we've got our fighter dice. We'll take a quick look at these. So there's different things that can come up on the fighter dice, and I'm just going to set it up so you can see what they are, and we'll talk about them very quickly. Now, what we have here, this is a critical hit, meaning you get a chance to roll a die again. This is just a regular hit. This is a defense, meaning you generate 1 defense token of the type of damage you're dealing. And in this case, this would be 1 damage and a defense token. So if this was Megan, she would generate kick defense. If this was Kyoryu, he'd be generating punch defense. It's important to note, you deal damage based on the type of card that you played, as we showed, or the type of damage that your fighter does. The base game includes these 4 dice, as well as the 4 enemy dice. And of course, that just knocks some stuff over. So we'll clean this up, get everything nicely placed again for you guys. So we've taken a look at the fighters, we've taken a look at their dice. the defense tokens, let's talk about the people that are going to be, maybe joining your fighters and or being an extra opponent. So that is the allies and the rivals. And as we've got some components for the stages right next to them, we'll look at that next. Now here we've got the allies and rival cards. Now the cards are double-sided, meaning there are two ways to play them. You may play them on the rival side, meaning that they will fight you, they will make things more difficult, or as an ally side, they will be joining you in your fight. You'll notice that Anastasia is over there in one of the minis, if you can see, but more importantly, we've got Along, the boss of the Golden Dragons, who can also become your ally. Now, this may play into a storyline. We've not got to play like any storylines really, like the Rise of the Kingdom or the comeback from Brandon. We'll talk about that next after we finish this up. So pretty cool. You'll notice the health that they have, how much damage they can deal. The defense tokens that they start with are here. So 1 kick, 2 grapple, 2 punch, 1 grapple. You can see those there. And then you've got the exhaust ability when they're allies. That means you exhaust the card because it's in your play area, and then you can perform the action that is below. In regards to these ones, if they're played as rivals, then you would follow the activate ability, and these would activate either in your threat space or if they're played in the enemy threat space. I'm unsure. The rules are on the back of this rule book, so you can take a look. I haven't played with rivals yet. Here we have the enemy dice. As you can see, when you roll them, it'll tell you what type of damage they deal. So kick, punch, or grapple. You can use these defense tokens to block. If you have any available, the objective tokens, these are placed on their active side up. Just reaching over, show you what an inactive side looks like. There are 5 of those, and they're placed in the stage. We have the loot, and we'll just give you a quick example of some of the things you can get. So with this, there are smoke bombs. What do we do with this? Place 3 power on this card. At any time, you may discard 1 power from this card to move 1 space. Pretty cool. The smoke bombs let you move. There are also loot like shurikens that will deal direct damage or things that will boost your attack. Now, just to be clear on what direct damage is, it's damage dealt directly to an enemy. It bypasses all defense tokens. And then you see the loot crates, which would then be placed there. So we've got all this area covered. We've talked about our allies, rivals, the heroes, the rulebook, the stages. Now let's talk about a really cool element of the game, the stories. Now I haven't really got to play them, but, well actually I haven't got to play them at all, but I did take the things out, well not the things, the cards out so that you can see them. So here we've got 2 examples of the stories. There are 108 story cards included in the game. You have stories such as Rise of the Kingdom. You have stories for the individual fighter. You even have, as you can see there, story penalties and perks depending on how well you do. Also, the stack of story cards for Brandon also includes some of these cards right here, but I believe they are a story version or related into the stories. Like I said, we're not going to cover the story mode in the how to play. The information is here in the rule book. Now, looked at the stories. Lots of cool ways you can play the game. Don't forget, you can play it as one-shots. Now let's dive into who you'll be facing, the enemy factions and enemy minis that are included in the base game. So what we have here is we've got the Brotherhood, the Golden Dragons, and the Cartel. Over there on the other side of our rubber identifying bands, we have the Kingdom, and we'll talk about them later on because they're a little bit different. What I wanted to showcase with the bosses is that you do have minions. Now I've taken out the Kingdom minions. We've got a lot of stuff out, so I couldn't take out minions for the Brotherhood, the Golden Dragon, and the Cartel in terms of cards. You'll notice that minions have their own color. So as you can see, there's the green Mountain General, there's a yellow and blue Power Soldier, and the marionette dolls, there's a purple and a red. So in here, so for example, with Dimitri, the Brotherhood has the Tao, Boris, some of those figures that are over there, and they have their own colors as well. The colors are important because as soon as you're playing a multiplayer game, it's going to affect the activation sequence. Well, not really the activation sequence, but it's a good way to identify which mini is which because there are multiple of all of them. The game does include 65 miniatures in total. So what I've taken out is really just a smattering, an example of the different characters. Well, not characters, the different minions. We've got all of our nice hero characters out on the board. Now, you also notice that bosses may have tactic cards, so I just took it out to give you an example of what a tactic is. When it's in their play area, it can activate. There's an interact ability that you can do, so you can interact with this tactic, maybe get rid of it. I'm not sure. There are events, and they may be very powerful. Once an event is taken out, you resolve it right away. For example, Along has these special Heavenly Dragon events. They hurt, fought him a lot. And then there's gear, which makes these villains more powerful. So as you can see, he's the boss of the cartel. And before I forget, Along's the boss of the Golden Dragons. You know, he's got a nice shotgun, so his gear is actually the 12, well, maybe it's not quite a shotgun, it's the 1812 flintlock carbine. So those are the three main, not main villain decks, but three of the villain decks that you're going to be fighting that are a little bit more, I'd say, simple than the Kingdom. The Kingdom's a little bit more complicated to set up. And depending on the story that you pick, you may be fighting a specific enemy, whether it's the Brother of the Cartel, the Golden Dragons, the Cartel, or the Kingdom itself. Let's take a look at the Kingdom now, because they're probably the most complex, at least in terms of what you're going to be getting in the base game. And we're going to dive right in. So with regards to the Kingdom, you've got a giant stack there. There are 3 bosses for the Kingdom. This reference card is going to tell you how to set it up, but essentially you pick a boss, follow the instructions to set up the Kingdom enemies that you will be fighting. Now, you see each Kingdom boss has their own different setup rules, their own different activate abilities, and it's pretty cool because you get your M. Bison, Goro, and Shadow is a standard ninja, but I'm sure I'm missing what game he's from. So many great fighters out there. Once again, don't forget you've got your nice identification rings that will match up with the colors of the cards that are played. And then just to keep things a little bit more spaced out and simple, I put examples of the marionette dolls next to them. You've got your Power Soldier mini next to them, and then the Mountain Generals, that guy over there in the corner. And then for the other minis that you're getting in the base game that are going to be included in the Cartel, Golden Dragons and Brotherhood deck, those are what we have out there. Well, we've gone ahead, we've done it, we've covered all the components with a little bit more detail than I've been trying to do as of late, but I felt that it was worth it for this game, Street Masters, because there's a lot of great components, and it's a fun time. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's a little bit of a preview to our review. It is a fun game. So now with that being said, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm going to rush down the streets in the combat. We're gonna set up a stage, and then we're gonna teach you guys how to play. And if things go well, I'm enjoying the how to play, this might even become a longer video and turn into a full playthrough. So keep it right here, and we'll be right back. Now we're going to set up Street Masters. What I want to highlight is that the setup for each stage and each villain group will be different. There's a stage deck, there are stage setup rules. We're going to take a closer look at that in a few moments. There is also a different setup for every boss. Now, one component you may be asking why I don't have out, which are the identifying rings to help identify the colors of the enemies. I pre-based all of the Golden Dragons. Don't yet have enough to pre-base all of the enemies. It's just that with this number of minions, I definitely had enough to do it. So I did it to make sure we have a nice setup for everyone as we do our setup and how to play. Now, what you need to do is you need to take out the boss card. You need to take out his minion and enemy deck, the Golden Dragon decks. You'll notice that Along is just a Golden Dragon card. So make sure you take it out. You need to take out the Right to Remain Silent stage setup card. So this is the same for every stage. Your boss and your stage setup card must be taken out. We're going to be needing the loot tokens. We have our objective tokens. In this case, I do have an ally as I'm doing a single player game. So Megan and Mr. Apple with their miniatures. The miniatures for Along, we have not a section, but a small amount of damage tokens. as well as defense tokens and our dice. Everything's here. We've got a nice play area, and we're going to start setting up. Now the first thing I will do is place the objective tokens face down to their inactive side. And we'll just take a quick look at the green token. That is what their active side looks like. We'll then place the crates. And we may have an excess amount of crates that we're able to place back in the box. The crate symbols are right there. And the joysticks are where we can potentially start. And we actually do have 5 crates, and they are now all placed. We're now going to set up the boss. We will take Along, place him on the boss starting area, and then we're going to follow his setup. We remove all Heavenly Dragon cards from the enemy deck, shuffle them together, and discard them. So Along starts with a discard pile. We're going to go through his deck. So we've got a tactic, Shadow Sun, which is a Heavenly Dragon tactic. And we've got these other 5 Heavenly Dragon cards. I just moved some stuff over. We'll fix that right up. Not that big of a deal. You guys can take a look. As you can see, they are events that are fairly powerful, as well. This tactic, which I've had to face before, it's a pain in the butt. Reduces all damage to Along by 1. The only way to get rid of it is by making him suffer 5 damage from a single attack. It also has an activate ability. We'll talk about that when we get into the how to play. Now these get shuffled up, and they're going to be placed in the discard. Now they will be face up because they are discarded cards, and we're going to need to shuffle this as well. The enemy deck will stay here. The discard is going to be right here. I want to keep this space free for Along's tactics, and we knocked over the Jinn, but no worries. Now let's shuffle up what remains of the Golden Dragon enemy deck. And we will place it up here. I'm actually thinking right now I want to leave some more space. I'm going to slide down the Golden Dragon cards with the discard, because I want to leave some space for Along to play his tactics if they do come out. We've now set up our enemy. You notice he doesn't start with any defense tokens. We will follow his activate ability once we get to the enemy turn. Now I'm just looking around here, and I realize I did not take out the fighter card. I will take one of those out, and I will get it set up as well. Let's go through the stage setup, as the fighter card is not a big deal. So the first thing we need to do is remove escaped prisoners and recovered intel from the stage deck and place them in the stage play area. Place each objective token in its corresponding space, inactive side up, and then we shuffle the stage deck. Now, what do we need to get? We need escaped prisoners, as this will be active and in play. And you know what? We're going to place Megan and Mr. Apple on the board. They'll start in this location just to give us a little bit more space to work with. So we have escaped prisoners and recovered intel, and we're shuffling up the stage deck. And I'm doing a terrible job of shuffling, but not that big of a deal. Just got to get this nice and mixed up. All right, so we have our stage deck. Now you will flip the stage setup over onto the other side because we get the stage rules. And there are different rules with regards to each stage. You notice that each space with a line is treated as a wall and treated as blocked space by all figures when counting for range. 4 effects do not count through walls. So this is all blocked. You can't move through there. Now, each objective token is an escaped prisoner that is treated as a figure. When an enemy picks up an objective, the objective reference card remains in the stage play area. Each enemy may only carry 1 objective at a time. So we've got escaped prisoners, This is the details of the prisoners and what the enemies are going to try to be picking up. So when we get to the stage section where we activate a card, we'll talk about it. The interact is the explanations on how we're able to interact with these escaped prisoners. Now, we've gotten the stage set up. Our figures are on the board. We've got our ally. We've got our fighter. We just need to set up our fighter now, and we do that by shuffling up our fighter's cards. And we're going to then draw 4 cards. Now, put this back. We'll draw out the 4 first cards. So we get an attack, Gale Force, an ability, Flying Knee, Tactic, Chi, Barrier of Will, and Final Cut. Now, what we're able to do is we're able to discard any of the cards that we don't want. We have a great opening play with Barrier of Will. This attack is good Gale Force. But I would really like to try to get some more tactics. I'm going to take the chance. I'm going to keep the Barrier of Will. I'm going to discard these 3. They're going to go back into my hand. And what I'm going to do is then draw the next 3 cards. So we end up with another Gale Force, another Final Cut, and once again the Barrier of Will, which really is not a great starting hand for us to have 2 Barriers of Will, because unless they've got a card that makes us get rid of the Barrier of Will, that card is almost like a dead card in Megan's hand. Now we're going to put that back there. We have our 4 starting cards, which I'm going to lay down here face up. It's a little bit tight for the play area. Don't be surprised if I start placing the hand, like when I'm done with it, just face up on top of the deck to give us some more room. And the game is now set up. We are ready to play. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut. I am going to practice a few roundhouses, get warmed up, and then we're going to jump into how you play Street Masters. Now we're going to go into how we play Street Masters. And for that reason, I've gotten the Fighter Turn card out because this is a perfect, quick, and easy breakdown of how each turn is going to go. Because we've got a lot of different things out here, I'm actually probably going to keep these dice off camera, and you'll just see them when they get rolled. It's just going to be easier. Gives me some room to place the enemy threat cards, and I'm going to use the Fighter Turn card really as sort of the break in between. Now, on the Fighter Turn, we have to go through our threat phase, our act phase, the react phase, and the draw phase. Now, the first thing we're going to do is go through the threat phase where we draw a card. In this case, we get a purple djinn. Now, what happens is this fighter, the purple djinn, enters at the closest space. In this case, it's 1, 2 from Mr. Apple, and also 4 from Megan. Definitely makes it the closest space. He now enters. Now what's going to happen is later on the react phase, we're going to go through the activate ability. We resolve the card. In this case, it's just a spawn, meaning it comes into play. An example of something that we do differently, like the Heavenly Dragon, you'll notice at this point, Alon gains 4 kick defense tokens and deals 4 kick damage to each fighter engaged with him. Then he retreats 3 spaces. If this was the card that we drew, this is what we would be resolving right away, which would only be the case if we had a fighter next to Along. Now that's just to give you guys a quick example. Now we jumped ahead a bit, but it's all good. We're now set up. And now when the enemy comes into play, it tells us, we can see right here, their health, the amount of damage that they do, which is 4 damage die, and what their defense tokens are, which is 2 punch defense. We'll take out the 2. We will place them on Jin as he's got these 2 defense tokens. Now, in the case of Mr. Apple, I neglected to do that, but not a big deal. He would also start with 2 kick defense tokens. And let's take a look at the next part of our turn, which is the act phase. Now, you may perform each of the following steps in any order of your choosing. Move a step up to 3 spaces. We may then play 1 card from our hand. We have the action step, which is perform one of the following actions, which would be either sprinting to move again, The defend action, which would let us gain 1 random defense token. A card action, resolve 1 action effect on a card. So for example, Feat of Fury would be an action for Megan. We can interact, which would be we resolve any interactability on any card in play. When the react phase comes up, well, we'll wait till we get to that. We've completed the threat phase. Let's move on to the card phase, as we really want to get something good out in our card play area. So we're going to play our tactic, the Chi, the Barrier of Will. Now, what we can do is exhaust. So each fighter within 3 spaces of you may gain 1 defense token of your choice. You exhaust it by turning it on its side. I'm going to just place these cards at the top. And we get 1 defense token of our choice. Now, Megan, when she does roll defense, generates kick defense, meaning that's not necessarily something that we want. We want to get different kinds of defense. In this case, I will add a grapple to Megan, as well as a punch to Mr. Apple. Now let's take a look at the scenario that we're in. And right now, we definitely can't get to the boss. And we want to get to this Jin right now because that's really what we're going to want to do. So the first thing that we can do is we're going to exhaust Mr. Apple to get in the move because he's sort of blocking our way. Now I'm going to just move the defense tokens off him so you can see what the ally can do. A fighter within 3 spaces of Mr. Apple may use any defense token on this card to block damage during an attack, which is really good. So exhaust, we can move Mr. Apple up to 3 spaces. Then Mr. Apple gains 2 defense tokens from an enemy engaged with him. And Mr. Apple may only attack an enemy with no defense token, which is perfect for engaging the Jin. We'll place him back down there. We'll stack up this kick defense and the punch defense. And we'll exhaust the card. I'm just going to tilt it like that to say it's exhausted. We're going to move 1, 2, 3. And just remember, we should take a look at the boss activate because the boss is going to get his turn. Along advances 2 spaces toward the nearest fighter and attacks. Then if unengaged, he gains 1 random defense token. But that means 1, 2. He can't get Mr. Apple necessarily this turn. And as you'll notice, he only has 10 health. Not necessarily the greatest thing. Now Mr. Apple is going to drain Jin's punch defense. He deals 2 damage dice, so we can roll the damage. And as there is no defense on Jin, we don't have to worry about him blocking anything. If, for example, he had still had one of his punch defense, then this would end up being blocked. Return to the stack, and Jin would only take 1 damage. But in this case, he's actually going to take 2 damage as Mr. Apple very well kicks some butt and clean the way for us. It is now Megan's turn. It's still her turn, but we're going to act. So we're going to do the move step and move 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. We then will attack with 2 dice. And we may resolve the channeled effect on a Chi card. As we only have Barrier of Will, we can only heal 1 damage. Let's move these dice off camera. We don't need them. We're going to roll. Hopefully we do 2 damage. In this case, that didn't really go the way we wanted. We only dealt 1 damage, meaning Jin is going to be alive and get his react phase. Now, we've completed everything that we're able to do. We then draw another card into our hand. In this case, we get another Gale Force. So may or may not be a good card to get. Our cards are exhausted. I'm going to place these right here. And we then move to the react phase. So from left to right, activate each card in your threat area by resolving its activate ability. Now we're going to resolve the Jin. What he does, he goes attack each fighter engaged with this enemy. Then if unengaged, gain 1 random defense token. Meaning he's going to attack both of us, which is not very good. He's going to roll. We'll clear this off. Just roll right here. We roll 4 dice. And he's attacking Megan. And I neglected, she did gain a kick defense. And I have an extra punch on here. Ah, no, you know what? I grabbed the punch defense instead of a kick. That's what I did. I apologize. That was confusion. We got the 1 grapple from Barrier of Will and the kick from the defensive rule. Now in this case, we're able to block 2. We actually don't discard these. They become charge tokens, but we do take 1 and 2 damage. Now we could use some defense from Mr. Apple, but don't forget we've got a card that heals us, and he needs to protect himself as well. Let's see what happens. We're going to roll. In this case, it is 3 kick and a punch, meaning Mr. Apple can block 2 and 1. I'm going to place these back on the stacks, hopefully not knocking them over. And Mr. Apple will take 1 damage. That then resolves Jin's turn because he's not unengaged, so he will not do the rest of his turn. If he was unengaged, he would advance 3 spaces towards the nearest fighter and deal 1 engaged fighter 3 general damage. Now, what is general damage and what is direct damage? We'll talk about that because I mentioned it. Direct damage goes through, and I moved Mr. Apple, sorry, the defense tokens. So if you deal 1 direct damage, can't block anything. General damage can be blocked with any type of defense token. So that is the react phase. We already did the draw phase. Doesn't really matter how you do it unless you pull a card that's defensive. You're not allowed to use it. We then flip this card over because it tells us what we do next. So we then go through the enemy phase. So the group, if you're playing with more than 1 player, activates each card in the enemy play area from left to right, resolving its activate ability. Now right now, the only card we have is Along. So Along will advance 2 spaces towards the nearest fighter. 1, 2. Or you can go here, 1, 2. Then if unengaged, Along gains 1 random defense token, then shuffles the topmost Heavenly Dragon card from his discard pile back into his deck. Now he will gain 1 random defense token. I'm just going to pick one because I don't have them flipped upside down. It just wouldn't look good for the camera. He then takes the Black Typhoon. We put it into his deck and we start shuffling up, meaning he's getting more powerful. So as you can see, engaging him and dealing that 20 points of damage to him is what we want to do. And as a note, guys, it is 20 points of damage per player. And we've now gone on to the stage turn. So let's see what we get with the stage turn. We have the activation phase. The group activates each card in the stage play area from left to right. So we're going to activate the recovered intel. And we're then going to activate escape prisoners. If there is ever 10 power on this card, the fighters lose. That is not the case. Activate. So let's see. For each inactive objective, choose a different enemy that is nearest that objective. Move each chosen enemy 3 spaces toward the nearest objective. Then each enemy picks up an objective in an adjacent space. Well, Jin is going to try to move towards an objective. His closest one, so let's count the squares, would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or if he goes this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Everything is pretty much 8, so we're going to move him just in this direction. 1, 2, 3. So Jin has moved away from us, barely annoying. And then we've got the escape prisoners. When an enemy carrying an objective suffers 1 or more damage, that enemy drops his objective. Each enemy carrying an objective gains 1 random defense token. While that does not happen, we then flip over the top stage cards to resolve the stage. So sneaking. Any fighter may discard 1 defense token to put this card into their play area. While this card is in your play area, enemies not engaged with you treat you as a block space instead of a fighter. Very interesting. If you suffer 1 or more damage, discard this card. You can exhaust it to gain an extra die. And feint. Feint means that you discard the card. Defeat a minion adjacent to you and discard 1 power from recovered intel. That is very cool. And I'm definitely putting that in my play area. as I've got an extra barrier of will, essentially, I'm going to discard this barrier of will. I don't have a great space for a discard pile, so I'm going to just discard it off camera. It's underneath Megan, for those of you wondering where it is. And I'm going to take sneaking and put it into my play area. It's going to get a little cramped, but I'm going to do my best to make sure you guys can see all of the cards. We've now resolved this full turn, and what we're going to do is we flip this card back over because everything is done. And it's now once again our fighter's turn. So that is how you play Street Masters. I'm having a good time with this, so I'm going to actually continue on, guys. We're going to go through another turn or two. We'll see what happens. Maybe this will actually turn into a full solo playthrough. Still not sure yet, but keep it right here, and I'll be right back. And we're back with turn 2. So let's take a look at the fighter turn. We've got our threat phase. Refresh each card in your fighter play area, not threat area, and draw and resolve one enemy card. So we refresh our nice barrier of will. Going to just move sneaking sneaking over a little bit. Refresh Mr. Apple. And then we have to draw another enemy card. What do we get this time? We get a green djinn. So this green djinn is going to go here. And he actually spawns right in our face, which is unfortunate. I don't really like having him there. We've got our 3 cards. And let's see what we can do. So this is going to be interesting. First and foremost, we're going to set up the djinn with his 2 defense tokens. And at the start of my turn, I gain 1 random defense token. I don't want to kick. I'm going to take a punch this time. Now, Mr. Apple can do some cool stuff. Mr. Apple can just engage this djinn right here, or move to engage the other guy. And I'm not sure what I want to do, but the more enemies become active, the harder this is going to get. But let's see what is going to make the most sense. We only have 1 chi card for final cut. A little complicated, but you know what? We're going to exhaust Mr. Apple. He's not going to move. We're going to take those 2 defense tokens, and we're just going to put the 2 damage on the djinn as he deals 2 white die. I'll roll them just to keep things looking good. 2 damage, no defense. That's what's happened. And I do want to move him slightly because he's just a little in my way. I don't like exactly where he is. Now we got to figure out what Megan is going to do. We can move or attack and then move. So we've got a couple of cool things that we can do. Let's take a look at Gale Force. Attack. After this attack, you may discard any number of chi cards you control, then deal the target enemy 1 direct damage for each chi card discarded. Interesting. We also have Final Cut. Attack. After this attack, you may move up to X spaces. X is the number of chi cards you control. Now, we want to engage Along. But do I want to kill him because we've got these 2 djinns out there? Now, before I forget, we're going to exhaust the barrier of will. I'm just going to twist it. I'll slide this over because I'm not playing another chi card. And each fighter gains a random defense, not a random one of their choice. So we're going to take a grapple for Megan. And Mr. Apple's got quite a few punch tokens. He'll take a kick just in case Megan doesn't get one. And we're going to do some cool stuff. As I've got a few different Gale Force cards right now, I'm going to play Gale Force. This attack lets me deal 2 damage, 2 dive damage. Hopefully we get a good roll here. All right, so that is perfect. That's one of the things I wanted to show everyone. Now, I'm going to just take the Gale Force and move it over top of sneaking in. This symbol means it's a critical, and we get to re-roll another dice. Don't actually need to, but you may get some more defense and things like that. In any case, it is 3 damage. We have now killed the green djinn. We will remove his miniature from the board. Put him back over here. and he's going to go into this discard pile. We then gain a loot, and what is the loot that we get? Brass knuckles. Discard this card during a punch attack to add 2 damage to the die. Oof, that's great when using Gale Force. I'm going to place it just right here for now. Don't worry, it's not going to stay there. Let's move the dice, and I'm not going to resolve the other aspect of Gale Force. So for the moment, this is going to go off camera into my discard pile. I can then move 1, 2, and I'm going to probably attack Along, but I've engaged him, so I could kill the Jinn. I want to just take a look at some of the other loot cards just to show you guys. There's some really cool stuff, like you can move, place 3 power on this card. Anytime you may discard 1 power from this card to move 1 space. And anytime you may discard this card to move up to an enemy up to 3 spaces. That's pretty cool. Turkey Platter. So there's a lot of different, and Turkey Platter, it lets you heal up to 3 damage. So that's definitely pretty cool. And I'm going to shuffle up the loot deck since I did go through it. I just wanted to show you guys some of the cards. Sneakers. That would be great for Megan. But that's just to show you what you can get. And the decision has to be now is whether I want to let this guy potentially move further away from me, or I want to start hitting the boss. We do need to start whacking the boss good. Now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to exhaust sneaking in to get an extra die, and I'm going to hit Along because we want to beat the boss. That's going to be very important. And in this case, that was a nice roll. It's 2 kick damage. He has no kick defense, meaning he's going to take 2 damage. We can resolve the channeled ability on one of our chi cards to heal 1 damage. And then we gain 2 kick defense tokens. And that is our turn. Now, unfortunately, the Jinn is now going to attack us, but we're going to probably power up from it. Let's remove the dice, and he's going to engage us, and he's not going to move. We go through his activate ability. We're on the react phase. It is 4 die damage, and it's 2 punches, a kick, a grapple. So we'll flip over the kick, and I took that off camera. Flip over the grapple, change them into power. You also can take the punch and flip it into power, but we are going to be taking 1 damage. You know what? That was not the worst from an attack. Everyone's reacted. We're going to draw our next card, the Flying Knee, and still no more tactics, which would be great, but that is the end of Megan's turn. And we will then remove these dice. We'll flip the card over because once again we go to the enemy phase. So it is Along's turn, and for the moment let's just stack the stuff off of him. Now, Along advances 2 spaces towards nearest fighter. He's already engaged, so he will not advance. He will not gain a random defense token. And nor will he shuffle a Heavenly Dragon card back into his deck. He's just going to attack us, and he deals 2 grapple, 2 punch. What I can do is I'll spend the 2 grapple from Mr. Apple to defend Megan, but she's still taking 2 damage. Don't forget that you do lose the game if your fighter goes down. And that is our enemy's turn. We then once again go to the stage. Now we're not activating any escaped prisoners. We're going to be using the recovered intel. So he's going to move 3 again towards the nearest. 1, 2, 3. So he's getting away, which is a little annoying, but let's see what we're able to do. And we then go and flip over this card, Arm Guns. This card deals each fighter 1 general damage. Now I will take 1 general damage, which I can block with my kick, and this also becomes power, which is pretty cool. Now, gone ahead and completed the turn. We're going to flip the card back over, and it is going to be our next turn. I'm going to bring these brass knuckles, and I'm just going to, let's figure out if there's a good place for them. There really isn't right now. I'm just going to put them sort of on top, well, underneath a little bit the fighter cards. And we're good to go. What I'll do right now is we're going to cut, and I'll come back with the third turn. I'm enjoying this. Let's see if we can actually turn this into a nice playthrough for you guys. And we're back with turn 3. So we're going to go through our threat phase, drawing the enemies. In this case, it is a Wombo, which is a very annoying minion. A red Wombo is now on the field, and we're going to have to look at repositioning seriously as he deals 5 dice of damage, or figure out a way to take him out. I think we're in a little bit of a tough spot, but you never know. Now, we've only dealt 2 damage to Along. We've got a long way to go, but we've got some great stuff going on. So at the start of your turn, I do gain 1 random defense token. We're going to just do that. It ends up being a grapple. And before I do anything else, Megan is going to spend 4 of her tokens. So we'll place these back on their respective stacks. And she's just going to power up here. We are just going to get a lot stronger. Probably even more strong if we had some more tactics cards, but those just don't want to come out for us right now. And we get an extra die damage. And before I decide to do anything else, I'm definitely going to whack the boss. I'm going to use my Barrier of Will. What I'll do with that is gain 1. You know what? I want to grapple. And he will take a punch. Oh, I did place one of my grapples, the grapple I just took, as random back into the deck. So don't forget, that's why I've got the 2 grapples. If I did make a mistake, it's not that big of a deal. It's only 1 defense token. I don't want to go backwards, but we're still in a good place. So we've got power. So I do 3 damage, and after this attack, you may resolve the channel effect on each chi card. Unfortunately, we only have 1, but let's take a quick look at Megan's cards. If, for example, I had projected chi, I would be able to use this ability, deal 1 direct damage to each enemy engaged with you. Would have been nice to have had that out earlier, but still in a good place. The Barrier of Will is done, so we'll play Sneaking on top. And let's get these dice. We're going to use Sneaking. We'll exhaust it right away. And we're going to hit him with 4 dice of damage. Hopefully this will be something massive. Well, it's 4 kick damage. Can't complain. And we generate 1 kick defense. Along is going to then be up to 6 damage. So we'll get rid of the 1. Put him at 5. We're getting there. Now, at this point, I really want to keep beating on him. Oh, wait, sorry, I took the wrong cards. Those are the ones that are off camera, as I've got the same ones in my deck. There's a Flying Knee, which deals 3 damage and lets me move. But that's not really what I want to do right now. I want to whoop on Along. So I'm going to just play Gale Force. So, and I'll put these down, just show you guys. Attack with 2 dice. After this attack, you may discard any number of chi cards you control, deal 1 direct damage. I'm going to spend the Brass Knuckles to add another 2, giving me a whopping another 4 dice of damage. And this is punch damage. But as it's punch damage, you know what? There's something I should do first. We're going to tap, exhaust Mr. Apple. He's going to move 1, 2, and 3. And we're just going to take away his punch defense token. I don't like it. And we do another, sorry, I hit the board, another 3 damage. But this time we generate 2 kick defense. Not the greatest. That's 3. And don't forget, I'm just going to remove these dice. Along as no defense tokens, meaning Mr. Apple can get a couple kicks in. Now, if he had any defense tokens, that would matter. He does not. He takes another 2 damage. Let's take a look what we got here. That's 4. We'll leave the 1 and stack another 5 on there. Well, he's at 11. We're almost getting there, but I think we're going to start running into some tough times. as we've got now on our react phase. Now the first thing that's going to happen is Jin is going to move with his activate and deal 3 general damage to Mr. Apple. And we can take the damage or we can block it. And before any of that happens though, I'm just going to slide this stuff off camera quickly, I believe. Megan is no longer powered up. She only has 2 charges and this other stack of defense tokens. Spread them out so you can see what they are. Now, we're following the activate. It says if unengaged, which he was not. So he's dealing 3 general damage. I don't want Mr. Apple to go down just yet. We've got kick and grapple on Megan. Let's take kick and grapple off. We can choose to block whatever amount we want to, and we'll put 1 damage on Mr. Apple. Now here's where it hurts. Wanbo comes in, and he's going to move 1 space towards us. Now, we haven't moved yet. So that is actually going to be the key thing. So I'm going to just sort of back up a little bit because I don't want to be near Wanbo. I can move up to a space. So remember, guys, I never took my move action. Just to get out of his range is actually within 2. It's going to be tricky, but you know what? We're actually going to move completely out of his range. Even though we're no longer engaged with how long Mr. Apple is. And the reason why we're doing that, sorry, I should have caught on to it before. Wanbo deals 5 damage, and in his activate, he advances 1 space towards the nearest fighter and attacks. And if unengaged, his enemy deals 2 general damage to each fighter within 2 spaces of it. If this enemy dealt no damage during this activation, it gains 1 random defense token. Now, you know what though? It deals 2 general damage. Yeah, see, I was here. Actually, I want him to hit me for general damage, to be honest with you. I want to move 2. We'll just let him move 1. He gets me for 2 general damage, which I can block, giving Megan enough to power up. So sorry I'm making a couple little mistakes here and figuring out, but it is a co-op game and want to make sure we're doing the best things. We've gone through everything. Let's draw a new card. We get another attack. Whew. No cheese, but thank God for this sneaking condition. It's making things a lot easier. And that's my deck. Flip the card over. We go to Along's turn. He's just going to whack us, both of us. So for Mr. Apple, he deals... this will be I said Mr. Apple, so Mr. Apple can block 1 punch, and then would take 3 damage, bringing him up to 5. He's almost out of the game. Then we're going to attack Megan, which is a kick, grapple, and 2 punches. So that's 2 damage, but I did neglect to do something. I did not use my channel ability, and sorry, these are both exhausted still, to heal 1 damage, so I will take that 1 damage off because I forgot to do it. And let's just clean this up. We've got a total of 5 damage right now on Megan. Now we can only take 11 more, but the boss ain't looking so great, which is one of the nice things. We may be able to defeat him. Once again, we're going to go through the recovered intel. Enemy moves 1, 2, 3. And then each enemy picks up an objective in an adjacent space, meaning the Jin now has the escaped prisoners. And what will then happen, we go through the activate. Remember, it goes left to right. Each enemy carrying objective gains 1 random defense token. I'm just going to move my hand, whatever I stop above. That's what it'll be. It is a punch defense. And that's for each inactive object. Wanbo actually moves 1, 2, 3 towards this one. And we'll flip this over to its active side because the enemy has it. We then have to. Also, we need to activate. I have this up the top, but it would be, going left to right. Place 1 power on recovered intel for each objective carried by an enemy. Now, actually, this should be here. The stage rules should be the first card that comes out. So there won't be any power going on recovered intel. Next turn, the power will be going on the recovered intel. I just set it up a little odd because I'm trying to get everything on camera so you guys can see it. And we're all good. We're then going to flip over the next card. Interrogation efforts place 1 power on recovered intel for each objective carried by an enemy. Any fighter may discard a card they control from their play area to cancel this effect. Meaning I'd have to get rid of Barrier of Will or Sneaking. I really don't care. We'll take a grapple, flip it over and place it as a power. We've now gone through everything, so we flip everything back over, and we are now on our next turn. So a cut right here, and we'll be back with our 4th turn. And we are now back with the 4th turn. So I will refresh my cards. Let's stack up our power that we have here. We'll actually just spend 4 of it, again, right away, just to clean things up a bit. This is 3 kicks and a grapple. Flip over Megan. She's all powered up. Refresh our cards and Mr. Apple. And we are good to go. Now, I'm going to be running a little bit out of room. So for this, the fighter turn card, I'm actually going to just place it, for the moment, above the escaped prisoners. Because we need to draw another card. We'll see what happens. What do we get here? Oh. Event Heavenly Dragon. So actually, I don't need to remove it because it's not going to be a new enemy. Along gains 4 kick defense tokens and deals 4 kick damage to each fighter. Engage with him, and then he retreats 3 spaces. So he's going to retreat 1, 2, 3. He deals 4 kick damage, meaning Megan is now at 9 damage. As is Mr. Apple. So that was unpleasant. We're almost going down, but it's now our turn. Let's see what we can do to make sure this guy just goes down. Fortunately, we're doing a lot of kick damage. So the first thing we want to do is move Mr. Apple. I want to get rid of... Hey, do I want to get rid of his defense tokens, or do I want to try... You know what? We can play this stuff in any different way. So Megan's going to move first. 1, 2 to get in range. Sorry, we hit the guy. Before I forget, we're going to place the 4 kick defense on him. And what we'll do, it's risky, but I'm going to play this, the Flying Knee, which is an ability, and it deals, I'm going to use them next, just deals straight up 3 kick damage. Meaning we'll get rid of 3 of these defense tokens. Now move Mr. Apple, get rid of his last defense token. We're then able to attack, roll the 2 dice, and he will take 2 damage. Meaning he's at a total of 10. We need to do 7 damage here to him, which may or may not be possible. Let's see what we can do. In this case, we've got 3 die. We are going to, before I forget, starting my turn, random defense token. It'll be the kick. I'm going to exhaust this, which I can do at any time. And we're going to exhaust sneaking as well. Each fighter gains a defense token of their choice. And we've got 4 dice. Hopefully we get some good crits. Well, it's not the best. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we deal 4 more damage to Along. So we'll take off 1 and put 5. Oh, that was a 10. Not sure what a 10 was doing there. Well, you know what? Let's do that. We'll get rid of the 10. So 15, 16, 17. So he's got 3 damage left. I think we're in really good shape to take him out, to be honest with you. I don't know where he's going to go. Megan is close to dead, but not quite. We've got our 2 cards left. Everything is done. Just gonna double check. Yep, removed the card. We've dealt all the damage we can. It is now the react phase. Let's move these dice off the board, as well as these ones. Jin is going to move 3 spaces towards the nearest enemy and deal 1 unengaged fighter general damage. He's going to gain another defense token, so he goes 1, 2, 3. He gains a random defense token. We'll just make it a grapple. Now, Wanbo moves 1 space, and as he's not able, he also gains a random defense token. And if I'm looking at this, grants 1 space toward the nearest fighter, then attack. Then if unengaged, he was not engaged the previous turn, he deals 2 general damage, because engaged means you are right up in it with an enemy. As he was unengaged, he should have had 2 defense tokens. Now, they were far away enough from us. Things weren't too bad. We're going to draw our next card. Focus Resolve, a grapple attack. Fairly interesting. Now let's go ahead and see what happens here. So we need to activate Out Long. As you guys know, he's just going to whoop on us. So this is for Megan. Oop, I did not mean to hit that. Let's bring it back down. So that is 4 grapple damage. Not liking that. Mr. Apple has a grapple. And before I forget, sorry guys, heal 1 damage. So we'll borrow the grapple from Mr. Apple. And unfortunately, I've got another one, so that's 2. And those fell over. I'm not going to worry about that, actually. We're going to just take the 2 damage, which brings Megan up to a total of 10. And there's really no way for Mr. Apple to survive. So we're going to say goodbye to Mr. Apple. He was very useful during this playthrough. Just drop this stuff here for the moment. There we go. Take these 2 punch defense tokens. We're going to stack them back up. I'll fix that up afterwards. But Mr. Apple has been defeated. Now you may be wondering what this other side is. It's just a good chance for me to show you. This is the rival side. So you can play him as an annoying villain. Notice he's got an activate ability to fight you. And we will move his miniature from the camera. I apologize for the quick cut before we got into the stage turn. Now our overhead camera cut out. I didn't realize till afterwards, and I was doing some editing to put the entire video together. For those of you that remember when we talked about this, we hadn't planned to do a playthrough, so just ran out of a room on the overhead. Now because Mr. Apple died, I cleaned some stuff up, I took an image, and I did my best to set everything back up the way that it was. And we're gonna go ahead and finish the stage turn and then do Megan's last turn, because if I'm not mistaken, we only have 17 hit points here. We should be able to defeat Long. Now there's one thing I do want to highlight before we go on. I neglected to set up Dow. My Dow cards, and I'll show you which ones they are, this guy right here, got mixed into the cartel deck. Now that really wouldn't have affected necessarily the playthrough based on the cards that came out. We just did not have an opportunity for this guy to show up. I've also will be going back and correcting that and advising people in the setup part of the video. Just as I'm doing this after the fact, just want to let you know. So I've done my best. We've created a little bit more space. I have my hand right here. If I'm not mistaken, these were the 3 cards that I had. I could only see the Focus Resolve at the top. But in any case, we should be good. He doesn't need that much damage. Once again, my apologies, and let's move on. It is the stage turn. So the first thing we need to do is take a look at the activate. So the first thing we do is we place 1 power on recovered intel for each objective card held by an enemy. We'll take this kick token, flip it to a power, because our Jin has the blue objective token. Next, we're going to activate recovered intel. So for each inactive object, and let's just move these dice, they're in the way. Choose a different enemy that is nearest to the object. Move each chosen enemy 3 spaces, just like we've been doing. So Wanbo will recover the red object, and the closest one, let's see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Doesn't matter, but I kind of like keeping things the same. We'll have Jin move 1, 2, and 3 as he's going to move towards the purple object. Now, we've gone through all of that stuff. It's time for us to get to the... Oh, before I forget, we need to activate the escape prisoners, meaning that Jin is going to get another random defense token. So we'll just... Oh, where do we stop? It is the grapple. He's got 2 defense tokens. It's not going to matter much. And we go to the draw phase of the stage check. Now, tripwire event. Each fighter must either discard 1 card they control or activate the nearest enemy. Now, I really don't want to activate the nearest enemy. Well, 1, 2, 3. That's actually not so bad. I can keep all of my cards. They're not going to get into range. They're not going to get a chance to act and hit me. So we will do that. We'll activate. Jenny's going to move 1, 2, 3. What will then happen is he gains a 1 random defense token because he's not engaged. Whoop. But we stop the punch. And can't forget here, Megan actually, that's one thing I did neglect to do. I'll fix that up. Megan had 10 damage on her. She has 2 tokens, but she did have 2 charge tokens. So I'll just take 2 grapples and flip them over to place her charge tokens as we get her set up for the next turn. Now we've gone ahead, we've completed the stage turn, we've wrapped up our 3rd turn, and let's go into our 4th turn. We really only need to deal 3 damage. Hopefully nothing nasty comes up, so we'll draw our Golden Dragon card. We have Invincible Armor, a tactic. In this case, when Along suffers any amount of damage while he has no defense tokens, shuffle this card back into his deck. It will activate on the enemy turn, but luckily enough, he's got no defense tokens, so I don't think we need to worry too much about that. We get to refresh the Barrier Veil and Sneaking. Made a little bit more room because we lost Mr. Apple. And let's draw my cards and see what we're going to do. Now, we need to deal 3 damage for sure, and I want to play Focused Resolve, definitely, because this attack deals +1 general damage for each chi card in play, meaning no matter what, I'll be able to do 1 damage. We will play, and this is an attack. We're going to exhaust this, and just to keep things going properly, I'll put these down. We will gain 1 random defense token, not looking. It's a kick. Megan gets her defense token. We'll exhaust this. We gain a defense token of our choice. I'll take a grapple just to go through the full motions. And we've got our Focused Resolve that I'm playing. So I'll just place these cards off camera here. For the moment, Focused Resolve. It's going to be 3 dice. And let's see what happens. Well, there we go. We deal a total of 3 damage, but we get some crits. Let's see how this is going to go. We deal more damage, so a total of 5 damage. A defense token. And Megan goes. Flying kick. Actually more like a grapple, but in any case, Jin's getting caught. You see what happens with that 1 card. We have now defeated Along, and we have successfully completed our mission on Right to Remain Silent, and we've defeated Along and the Golden Dragons. Now, once again, apologies for that quick cut. We're now going to get out of our nice playthrough and move on to our review of the game. So, Street Masters by Blacklist Games, your first experience with a Sadler Brothers cooperative game. Hoping you like Heroes of Terranaut since it's set in one of your favorite worlds. But tell the viewers, what did you think of the game?
The first time we played, I was so lost. I was regretting agreeing to play this with you. I was thinking of all the other things I had to do and sitting here going, I don't understand what's going on. How are you chaining those things? What am I supposed to be doing? What the heck is the point of the game?
Yeah, and I told our viewers, just so you know, that this was a big game. I warned her, I'm like, we need to play this definitely like a few times, and it's going to take a little while. You got to really figure out what you're doing, and then once you grasp it, it'll make a lot more sense.
Yeah, so the first time, not so much fun, and we lost. And the second time, I started getting a handle on it. By the end of the game, I got it. I understood what we were doing. I think the stage was a little bit easier that time.
Yeah.
The third time, I had a lot of fun. By
It's
then,
still a challenging stage, though.
It was just easier than the first one we played.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Megan and the way that I could, chain up the tactics. It's the tactics.
Yeah.
You do have abilities as well, and you have fight. I like that you can power up and get that extra dice. By defending, that you can. I rolled well today. I was having luck with the dice, so I was getting also. I like the, what did you call them? The ones where you get to roll another attack.
There's for those of you that have seen How to Play, you've seen it. There's the crit. She rolled a lot of crits. The last time we played, I think there was one turn where she probably dealt 15 damage or so to the boss herself, and I was like, well, she's only got 40 health, and you pretty much took out half of it in one turn because she was rolling like a beast. You can also ask the Cyber Bard. She rolls like a beast. She has snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, actually right out of the Cyber Bard's hands.
So I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the production value of it. I like Megan. I enjoyed playing with Megan. I have to admit I haven't played with anybody else. I should try the other female characters and see how that goes. But I enjoyed playing against the Bratva and playing against the Triad. I don't know what other baddies.
I don't know if the Bratva, that's Russia, you're right. Dimitri's definitely the Bratva. The brother, the Bratva.
Yeah.
Good catch.
So I don't know what other baddies you have in that box. I have the advantage of letting Jason set up and tear down the gates. It's part of the deal. So I don't know what else is in the box, and that's okay. It'll be a surprise for another time that we play. So I enjoyed the fact that there are minions and the production value and all of the cards. And I really like the fact that I can't roll bupkis with the dice. That at least I get defense. That was great too. So.
By the way, just to mention, one of the reasons why we are highlighting the dice, for those of you that follow the channel, you may have seen our kick-ass review and How to Play, also the playthrough. And we got fairly lucky during our playthrough, but on a couple of plays, she took like 10 dice, nothing. Something that does not happen in this game, and I gotta give the game credit for, giving the fact that you get something negative. Maybe you're not dealing damage, but you still get something by generating defense. Right. That I think is a big plus. It means that nothing's wasted. Nothing feels wasted in this game.
Yep. So that's it. I mean, there aren't really the major con for me. The main con, I would say, it's not a major con. It's the main one, is that it's complex and it's not something that you're going to play just once. You have to play it a few times, I think, to really get the game.
Probably a few times for each fighter as well.
Yes. So I don't think for that. I think it limits the people that you can play with. I think you're going to play with other people who, one, are willing to play more than one game, so it's a time commitment, and two, somebody who's played this, a complex game before and who can grasp the different mechanisms of the game. I don't think we'd play with what I call part-time gamers or the more traditional type of board game people.
I think the best way to sort of describe it's not really what you're doing, but it's sort of in the same vein of it, is when it comes to the combos, it feels a lot like deck building. Pulling off the right combo to really utilize those cards in the best fashion possible. Except this time you've got some cards on the board, it's really abilities. So if you have anyone that's fairly experienced or done well with deck building games, they understand co-op games and how difficult they can be, they may be ready and willing to go up to Street Masters. But if there's someone that's, never played a co-op, never touched deck building, I think it might be better off to have them stay away from this. And what do you think of the art of the game?
I think it's pretty good. I think it's good. I mean, it's colorful. It's different.
I really enjoy the art because it really gets that sort of 90s video game style feel to it, which is exactly what they're trying to replicate. This game definitely goes to replicate Streets of Rage. For those of you that know the game, and I'm drawing a blank, I'm thinking like 3 other Genesis games that just popped into my head. But a little bit of TMNT, Turtles in Time, with regards to the beat 'em up, and of course Double Dragon. But you got to throw in a little bit of Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat as well, because you're fighting the boss, you're managing the minions, and that is a lot of fun. Also very challenging, especially when you've got more players. So besides the con, like you said, at the complexity, is there anything else that you didn't really enjoy in the game?
No, I think that was it.
So just to give you guys my thoughts on the game, I've played this with multiple player counts from 2 to 3 to 4. And the one thing I will say is that the gameplay is very similar on every player count. The interesting thing about playing with more players is that you can do a little bit more with regards to like managing minions and also engaging the boss. There's a couple playthroughs that I played with some of my friends. Actually, my friend Stuart, the one that introduced me to the game, the one that backed the game on Kickstarter. And what was very cool is I was able to do some things that he didn't even realize were possible by chaining some techniques and the proper abilities together. And sorry, I said techniques, I meant tactics. What was also really fun is that I was pretty much running around managing all the minions. I was also playing Megan at one point, so buffing their defense, so planning my movement as well as doing as much damage as possible, while the other players were doing their best to focus on the boss and also damage the minions. So that's what I really like about the co-op aspect of Street Masters, is that you're going to be very much doing different things at higher player counts. I found more often than not at 2, at least depending on the fighters that you pick, you may or may not just be kind of focusing in on the boss if possible. But it's going to depend on the stage. As we learned from our first very difficult stage, ignore the stage at your own peril. Because that's what we did, and I think it was, 4 turns later, we were dead, and you were very confused.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, how did we lose? I was like, I didn't think it was going to go like that. Let's pick something that I've played before.
Yep.
So cons, there is definitely a slight little bit of randomness, and I think that randomness gets mitigated at higher player counts, but I think it's something that can be a little bit more of a negative factor at lower player counts. Julie was fortunate enough to get usually all of her tactics cards out very quickly. I've played some games where that hasn't happened, and while you're still doing stuff, sometimes you feel a little bit less powerful. If you're playing with higher player counts, it doesn't show as much. You also may have a player that can let you draw a card who might be like, oh, you know what? I've got this ability, you've got no tactics, I'm letting you draw a card, which can be very, very useful, and it's a fun strategic element to the game. But at a lower player count, you may be stuck with what you have. So that is one con that I see. The setup is a little bit of a beast. However, and this is just a highlight, depending on when you guys are seeing this, we are doing this video now to get it out, hopefully before the end of the current Kickstarter for the reprint of the original game, as well as a new expansion, Aftershock. There's a very cool box that's supposed to help store all of the Street Master stuff in one place and make it a lot easier for us to get it to the table. So depending on when you look at this, you may want to check out the Kickstarter campaign or keep an eye on their website. I was lucky enough to buy this for the Kickstarter price, the stock that they had left over from the Blacklist Games website. It went fast. So keep that in mind. Just a little tip for everyone that is very interested in the game. And then I think we've talked enough about the game, about the different plays. Let's move on to our scoring of the game. So Julie, what would you give the game, out of 10, the way we like to score stuff here?
It's a solid 8 for me.
Solid 8? And why is it an 8?
Because of everything I just said. Sometimes he asks the weirdest questions.
Yeah, so for me, it is an 8.5. It almost gets to the 9. I would say that the randomness element, because I've experienced it, just kind of docks it a little bit, half a point. Now, there is some stuff in the game, like the chucking of your cards, that can help you, at the start to limit that randomness, but it's still there. And the one thing that we didn't highlight because we haven't played it, and I want to make sure to talk about it just before we go and why it's an 8.5, and also I think why Julie's rating it very high, is there was a lot of campaigns in this, which is very cool. Every fighter has their own story deck, except for the ones from the Kickstarter stretch goals. You also have some different story decks for the villain groups. And with the Kickstarter, there's even more of those coming out. So in this game, I think you get about 10 different campaigns that you can play through that each have about 5 or 6 parts of the mission. I don't remember. Don't quote me on that. You can definitely take a look when you get the game for yourself. But 8.5, one of our favorites, and I think we're definitely going to be playing some more Street Masters.
Yep.
And depending on how things go and what new games get released and what old games we try to cover, you may be seeing us covering some of the other Street Masters content that is up there behind us as we review some of the expansions before the game comes out. Well, Street Masters Aftershock comes out and we actually get it in our hands. And hopefully before maybe there's some new content available on Blacklist Games' website for those of you that may be seeing this after the Kickstarter.
You can always, if you want us to be reviewing one of the expansions that you see behind us or that you know exists, you can always comment below, let us know, like, subscribe to the channel. Always a pleasure to see your comments.
Yeah, and you'll be seeing videos popping up above our heads,
If
maybe
he doesn't
over my face.
poke my eye out while he does this.
And you almost poked my eye out.
So we're going to grab our drinks.
Grab our best friend.
Slurp, slurp. Keep playing games.
Keep playing games. So what fighter do you want to try next?
I don't know. She looks pretty. Who's she?
That is Natalia. And she's different than a lot of other fighters because if you remember Dimitri with his gear, she's able to discard those cards and basically disarm. And she's more crowd control than defense and punching to the face.
I like punching. We'll see. We'll look at the characters.